Hello, so welcome to the next square of the 50 Stitches Crochet Along, and this week we're making the feather stitch. The feather stitch makes this absolutely beautiful texture. It's really thick. This is a yarn eater of a stitch, so it's nicely double-sided, and it just makes this lovely interlocking feather pattern. So it's a really thick stitch there's virtually no holes in it. And it's so pretty. I do love this stitch. So how do we make it? We're going to be using a 3.5mm hook, and we're going to be starting with a foundation chain of 32, and in the 4th chain from your hook you're going to make a half double crochet. Remember that turning chain counts as a stitch, and then just half double crochet down every chain. So row 1, including that turning chain, you will have 30 half double crochet. So then you're going to turn, chain 1, make the alternate turning chain, what did I just do there? For some reason, every time on camera lately, I cannot for the life of me make a single crochet for this turning chain. Oh, honestly, what happens? The stress of being on camera. Right, 1 single crochet through there, and 2nd single crochet, right. There we go. We'll get there eventually. And then this counts as a stitch, so stitch marker through there. So now I'm going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, and the next one half double crochet, chain 1, skip the next stitch, half double crochet, and we're going to do this all the way down the row. So just chain 1, skip a stitch, and half double crochet. We're doing this to create the spaces we need to make our feathers. So skip a stitch and a half double crochet. Now normally the feather stitch is made with an odd number of stitches, so I've had to modify this a little bit to make this work. But I will show you how I've done that at the end of this row and the beginning of the next row. But once we only have to modify 1 stitch, and then the stitch count will be right all the way through. I will show you that when we get there. So in the meantime, it's just chain 1, skip 1, and then half double crochet all the way down. Chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet. Almost there. Chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet. As you can see, that only leaves us with 1 stitch left, and this is where I've had to modify a little bit. And in that last stitch you're going to make a half double crochet at the top of the turning chain, and this gives us 30 stitches in the row. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's 2 half double crochet together in those last 2 stitches, not together, but half double crochet in each stitch in the last 2 stitches. So then we turn, chain 1, alternate turning chain in the first stitch. Remember how to make a single crochet this time. Right, this counts as our first stitch, so we'll just pop a stitch marker in there. Okay, so this first feather is the one I've had to modify. We're going to yarn over into, make sure I get my bearings here, yep, into the same stitch we just made, yarn over, into the loop and pull up a loop, yarn over, you're going into the space of that chain space in row 1, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we're going to go over into the first chain space. So this is where we chained 1 and skipped a stitch. So in that hole, go in there and pull up a loop. You'll have 7 loops on your hook and pull through all 7 loops, then chain 1. Okay, so this is where I modified. So normally this first stitch will be made straight into that chain space, finishing in the next chain space. So if you're using the feather stitch for any other stitch, use an odd number of chains, forget this feather and start straight into that chain space. So a feather is made, yarning over, into the chain space, insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull it to the same height as your other stitches. Yarn over again, directly below, so this is into row 1, beneath the stitch where we skipped a stitch. So row 2, into row 1, hook through there, pull up a loop. Then go across to the next chain space, hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop. So you'll have 7 loops on your hook, you'll have stitches coming out of 3 different places, and you're going to yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Okay, so it goes into that chain space we just finished the last feather, you go in the stitch directly below that, there, and then for the third part into the next chain space. If you're not quite sure where it goes, if you click over to the written pattern, the link's in the description. I've got some pictures which hopefully will show it a bit better in there. It's a bit difficult to get the angle right in the camera to show you. So, chain space, we finished the last feather, that's where we start. Go into that hole there. Directly below, so this is chain row 2 working into there. So row 1, we go into there, and directly over into the next chain space. So it's kind of like a triangle. 1, 2, 3. And those are the spaces we make our feather. So yarn over into the chain space, pull up a loop. Yarn over the stitch below the chain space and pull up a loop. And then the next chain space across, yarn over and pull up a loop. And pull the way through. It'll get easier to see where you're making your stitches in the next row. So once you're pulled over, chain 1 and then start the next feather. Yarn over into the chain space, pull up a loop. Yarn over into stitch directly below, pull up a loop. Yarn over the next stitch across, pull up a loop, 7 loops on your hook, pull through all through 7, chain 1. We do this all the way across the row. So this is how the feathers are made for all the rows, except in the next row you'll be making it into the feathered row. So into the chain space, pull up a loop, stitch directly below, pull up a loop, stitch over, pull pull up a loop. So you always start your feather in the same chain space as you finish the last feather. More yarn. This is a very yarn hungry stitch because of all these loops being pulled up. Yarn over, pull up a loop, directly below, pull up a loop, next chain space across, pull up a loop, and pull through. Chain one, pull up a loop, and the second, and number 3. There's 3 stages to every feather. And chain 1 after you've made your feather and pull through all those loops. You take a look, you see them all nicely starting to form. And we'll just do this all the way across the row. Part 1, 2, 3, and pull through. Chain 1. 1, 2, 3. And chain 1. And chain space, pull up a loop, stitch directly below, pull up a loop, and the chain space, pull up a loop, and chain 1. Almost at the end. Oh, oops, sorry. Where was I? Oh, I don't know. It's always a bad idea to try and pull up yarn halfway through a feather. Try that again. Yarn over into the chain space, pull up, down there, pull up, and the next chain space, pull up. Go. 2 left to go. 1, 2, 3, pull up a loop, chain 1, that is the last one actually. So that's the last feather, and then in the last stitch at the end of the row, make a half double crochet. Okay, so you should have 30 stitches in that row. Then we turn, chain 1, in that first stitch make the alternate turning chain. Okay, that counts as your first stitch. Okay, so we're going to continue the pattern all the way across as we did before. So in that first chain space, I'm going to yarn over into that first chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over into that space directly below, yarn over, pull up a loop. So now we're going to go into the chain 1 space on the other side of the feather below. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull through all 7 loops, chain 1. Oh, what's happening there? Catching something. There we go. Okay, so the first part goes into the where we finished the last feather. Second part is going to go directly below. You see that hole created where these stitches converge? That's the second part. And the third part is going to be on the other side of the feather in the row below in that chain 1 space. Okay, so yarn over, same chain space we just finished, pull up a loop. Yarn over into that hole created by the feather, row below, pull up a loop, chain space on either side of the next feather, pull up a loop, chain one. You see they're now interlocking, making that lovely pattern. So it's yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over into that space directly below, pull up a loop, and then into the chain space on the other side of the feather, pull up a loop. It's easier to find your spaces once you've got past that first row of feathers. It makes it much easier. And that's how we go. So the pattern is a repeat of row 4 that we're doing now. And you just do this for the entire square after this. Pull up a loop. Through all 7. Oops, I lost that one. No, never mind. You've got the idea by now. So pull that out. I'm going to make this lovely interlocking pattern. So repeat this row that we just done with where all the stitches go. The part where I modified back here, you don't need to do anything after this, you just carry on with this pattern. I just had to add that extra stitch there just to get the count right. But the feather stitch is row 4. You do this. That is the feather stitch. So I bring the original square back. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, where's my writing gone? I've lost my writing. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. There are 20 rows in this stitch. So your feathers start on row 3, but it's row 4 that you repeat all the way through. Your feathers end on row 19. Row 20 is half double crochet in every stitch across. So that's half double crochet on top of every feather and in every chain space, giving you 30 half double crochet all the way across. Okay. You're going to alternate between, for the border, you need to alternate on the side between 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet all the way down. That will give you 30 stitches. It's 1 single crochet in every stitch across the top and the bottom, and an extra stitch in the corners for the turn. And that is the feather stitch. I hope you enjoy, and as always, if you have any questions, do come over to the Facebook group. The link is in the description, and come and show us your finished squares. So I hope you enjoy this one, and I will see you next time for the next square. Bye for now.